Growing feels really good in theory, right? The self-development, the healing, the evolution, all of that sounds cute until you look around and realize the people, the places, the patterns, the behaviors you used to vibe with no longer resonate. They no longer vibe with who you are. Just doesn't fit. That's the uncomfortable side of growing that I don't think we talk enough about. You're going to lose some of the things that you once prayed for. You're going to leave some of the rooms that you once begged to be invited into. But I need you to know that that is not failure. That is a sign that you are evolving, that you are shifting, that you are growing. Evolution requires space. It requires space to grow. It requires new environments. And most of all, it requires a new level of self-honoring. If you are somebody right now who is struggling with letting go of relationships, whether they're romantic, whether they're friendships, whether they're jobs, behavior patterns, or even if they're old versions of yourself, and you're just feeling alone, feeling sad, but you also see that new level, that new elevated version of yourself on the horizon, then this episode is for you. As I always tell you, you are not alone. So you know what to do. Get comfortable, grab a snack, grab something to drink, and it's time to tune in and shift with me. Welcome back to the On Some Real Shift podcast, where I have real conversations on what it takes to shift your mindset and uplevel your emotional and spiritual life. I'm your host, Vanessa. I'm a certified life coach, mindset transformation coach. I do Reiki and sound bath healing, but most importantly, I am a student of the university. Welcome back, my friends. So let's talk about it. Growth is uncomfortable, and we hear this all the time, but what do people even really mean? I think most of the time people mean it's uncomfortable because we lose a lot of the people, places, and things that we love, and like I said, that we once even may have prayed for. But I think some of it is even having to reframe it from a loss. We have to stop calling it a loss and start saying that we're making room. Because within this loss, there is also a rebirth. If you are feeling like, damn, I'm looking around me and I don't relate to anybody anymore, I need you to know that you're not crazy, you're not arrogant, you're just growing. Let's talk a little bit about the assignment that often comes with outgrowing the room. 9 times out of 10, that makes you the cycle breaker. What does that even mean? I'll tell you, it's not a coincidence. It's not random. You weren't just born into your circumstances. I'm gonna try not to get too woo today, but no promises. You're the cycle breaker. You are the one who saw it and said, this ends with me. Whether you realize it or not, somewhere in your spirit said, can't do this. This is not the path I'm supposed to take. I'm supposed to take this path. Let me shift it. And it's not easy. Being the one who wakes up in the middle of generations of trauma is traumatic in itself. It is sacred work. You are going to question yourself. You're going to feel isolated. I can't tell you how many people are going to tell you to your face and behind your back that you're crazy. You're going to carry burdens that you did not create. But more importantly, you are going to create bridges for the ones that are going to come after you. And let's get very real about this. Breaking cycles is not really this big dramatic gesture. It is about daily practices. Your habits. It's choosing to speak up instead of staying silent. It's choosing therapy and coaching over repression. It's choosing authenticity over approval. It's choosing peace over chaos. Even when chaos is what you were raised in, it is going against the grain that is for your highest good, even when it feels uncomfortable. It can show up in ways that do not seem obvious until you've been doing it for a while. For instance, I'll use myself as an example. I used to be very self-deprecating. I have a very sarcastic sense of humor. I love to make sarcastic jokes. It's just kind of how I've always been, and often at my own expense. However, I don't do that anymore. Number one, because I have realized and learned the power of the tongue and the power of our words and the fact that our brains believe everything that we tell it. So I'm very cognizant of my inner monologue, and I talk about that a lot on this channel, that we have to be mindful of the way that we speak to ourselves. And it's gotten to the point where I don't even like to joke with myself about anything negative because I don't want my brain even to think for a second that any of that should be normalized, that any negative narratives should be normalized at all. So I have adjusted the way that I joke about myself. And the thing is, I'm not the only one. Some of my dearest friends have that same type of sense of humor, but now when they joke with themselves like that, they'll tell you, I don't joke with them in the same way. I'm like, you're not going to speak about yourself like that. Absolutely not. I stop it because I'm not comfortable with it. Number one, because I want my friends to speak about themselves in a positive and uplifting light in the same way that I see them, right? No, girl, we're not going to even joke about ourselves in this way because we deserve the utmost level of peace, love, light, and respect. So like, I don't entertain those types of jokes anymore. It might seem minor, but it really isn't. Changing your inner monologue and changing the way that you speak to yourself is really a big deal. I didn't realize how self-deprecating I was, how negative I was speaking about myself, even in the terms of jokes, until I stopped doing it. I became hyper aware of the people around me that were doing it too. Another way that you might notice that you have outgrown the room is maybe announcing something that you're proud of, right? Maybe you're launching a business or you talk about a boundary that you have implemented and suddenly the room goes quiet. Or worse, somebody hits you with one of those like must be nice energy, right? I know for me, my old version of myself probably would have swept that under the rug, but my elevated version now, I say, ooh, I don't think we're celebrating wins in the same way in this room, so I might need to either remove myself or limit my interactions or adjust my energy that I invest here, because for me, I'm celebrating my friends' accomplishments, period. But here's the thing, I'm not here to point the finger at everybody else because it's not only about outgrowing other people. It is about outgrowing the versions of yourself that built that room, the version that tolerated that type of low vibrational behavior, right? The version of you that engaged in those types of conversations actively and willingly, the version of you that tolerated emotional crumbs, which is called dysfunctional loyalty, and the thoughts that being relatable means that you have to stay small. Sitting in the same room, in the same environment, with the same people, with the same patterns, but you have shifted, you have changed, you know better. Yeah, it gets uncomfortable and it gets exhausting to pretend that you don't. I do want to make a couple of things clear though. Just because you have elevated does not mean that you are any better than the people in the rooms that you have outgrown. Just because you're no longer laughing at the group chat's trauma bonding doesn't mean that you're too good for them. Person who is truly elevating and evolving is not looking at the next person through a lens of superiority. You are understanding that they're just in a different place in their journey, and that's completely okay. You are looking at them with a lens of gratitude and humility. Be grateful that you are not in that space anymore, because I guarantee you were at one time. And you could be. It just means that you have raised your standards internally, and that is okay. Again, it doesn't mean that you're better than the next. The moment that you start looking down on the next person for elevating is the moment you knock yourself right back down into that low vibrational behavior. Because you have raised your standards internally, you have become the cycle breaker. It's not glamorous. It's not all crystals and meditations and plants and all that shit. It is questioning everything that you were taught with intention. It might look like being the only one at the family dinner who is not emotionally regressed. It's going to mean hearing you've changed like it's a bad thing. It's going to be being called crazy often. It also means being rooted and confident in where you are in your journey and knowing that this is for the betterment of you and those who are coming after you. It is knowing that, yes, I have changed and it's called growth, babe. Try it. Being the cycle breaker means that you saw the pattern, no matter what it was, whether it was poverty, passive aggressiveness, silence, codependency, substance abuse, whatever. And you said, not anymore. It ends with me. Even when it's lonely, even when you're misunderstood, even when the people that you love don't get it, you keep going because deep down, you know this is not just about you. It's about the generations that you are healing in real time. One of the things we don't talk enough about is breaking cycles in a cultural context. I am the daughter of an immigrant mother from Colombia, South America. And while she's been in the United States for a long time, there are still a lot of beliefs that are deeply rooted in our Colombian culture that for me, the more I heal, I have learned are just trauma responses. So while my mother has loved me fiercely and done a beautiful job, she's one of the most badass women I've ever met. There is a more complex layer because you're adding a cultural nuance to undoing these patterns that are so deeply ingrained in our bloodline. For instance, what I've learned is culturally, it's very common for women especially to sacrifice themselves for family or not speak about their emotions or to endure in silence. Or a big one that just grinds my gears, and bless my mom, I know this is one where we butt heads, but prioritizing image or tradition or community approval is a big one. Challenging this is challenging these behaviors that are deeply rooted, are challenging generations, right? And these behaviors were probably deeply rooted in survival strategies. So I have the utmost empathy, right? I firmly believe that our family was doing the best that they could with the tools that they had at the time that they had them. But they are so deeply ingrained and baked into the fabric of our identity. They're so hard to undo that oftentimes if you're somebody who is close with your parents like I am, going against that grain oftentimes is viewed as like disrespect, for instance. So when you start breaking those cycles, when you start challenging those narratives, it can oftentimes feel like I said, disrespect or betrayal rather than empowerment. I want to remind you that you're not just healing you are healing the generations to come. And there's no blueprint from those who came before you because you're the cycle breaker. So just trust that you're doing the best that you can. Also know there's going to be little to no validation from those closest to you. And it's not personal because it's all they know. Cycle breaking is sacred, but it's not always celebrated. It takes a lot of emotional courage to do. And it takes a lot of compassion, a lot of gratitude, a lot of humility, a lot of forgiveness for both where you came from and for where you're heading. Let's talk a little bit about the grief. We touched on it a little bit earlier, but people don't talk enough about the grief that comes with letting go of these old patterns, these old people, places, and things that just do not serve us into our healing future. Grieving the old you, the friend group that you outgrew, the role that you used to play, the approval you used to seek, the approval you used to crave. Then there's that sneaky guilt, right? It's that feeling bad because you don't relate anymore. You kind of feeling like you've abandoned people. If you feel that way, if you feel like you are abandoning people in your evolution, I want to say this to you with love. You didn't abandon them. You just stopped abandoning yourself. You don't owe anybody the old version of you, the low vibrational version of you, because it makes them feel more comfortable. It is not your job to shrink yourself to make somebody else feel more comfortable. And here's a reminder for you. It is okay to love people from a higher frequency, from a distance, with boundaries, with silence even, because sometimes that's the most loving thing that you can do, is to stop participating in the dynamics that are keeping you and them small. Sometimes our presence is simply enabling their bullshit, All right, so you've clearly identified that you have outgrown the room. Now what? It's time to build the room that you deserve. Number 1, stop shrinking to fit back in. That version of you already had its role. Seen, over, done, ya no más. We're done with that. He is not built for that mold anymore. You are being called to build a room that reflects healing, a room that allows you to align with your highest self. And while we're at it, it's time to identify who your highest self is, what they look like, and how they operate. You're being called to find people who clap when you enter the room, when you set boundaries. You are being called to find people who clap when you set boundaries, not people who guilt you for setting them. You're being called to have conversations that expand you and not drain you. And listen, every dynamic, even the healthy ones, will have challenging and sometimes draining conversations. But I'm talking about overall. I'm talking about the overall contribution to life. You are being called to say no without a million disclaimers as to why. No means no. No is a complete sentence. Maybe your new room is quieter now, and maybe it's just you. And that's okay. Sometimes solitude is like the sacred pause that your soul takes before your soul-aligned community shows up. Do not go back to what you knew just because you're lonely. I promise you, the universe will hand you your ass. Do not shrink just because you're scared. Your alignment is way too expensive to sacrifice for short-term comfort. I'll leave you with this. Growth can be lonely, but staying stuck is soul suffocating. If you're listening to this, you probably didn't come to play it safe. You came to shift. And this part, outgrowing the room, releasing the roles, building the new identity, this is where you earn your freedom. I want to give you a journal prompt this week. I want you to ask yourself, write it down in detail. Where am I still trying to be understood by people who haven't done the work to understand themselves? Think about it. Get honest, get free, This is your time to shift. As always, I am super grateful for your time. If this episode resonated, please drop it in the comments below. Like, share, comment, and subscribe. Also, I have a journal that's coming out. If it's not out already, if it is, I'll put the link down below. But if it's not, it's called From Imposter to Empowered in 30 Days. Think of this as like a 30-day self-paced coaching program with yourself. The idea is to help you understand that you have the power, you are worthy, and to help you go from imposter to empowered. It's designed for you to be reflective and shift your mindset. It's broken down in 4 phases. I really enjoyed it because it really helped me identify some of the negative narratives that I didn't even really realize I still had going on. And it's really interesting to see just the shift that you can make, like I said, in just 30 days. So that's it. I appreciate your time. I will catch you on the next one. Peace.